Will and the Master of Magic. Long ago, on a small rural farm, there lived a hardworking maid and her son, Will. Born out of wedlock, Will never knew his father, having been told only that he had passed away from illness before Will was born. The farm's owners, an ill-tempered farmer and his wife, were cold-hearted people who forced the maid to toil endlessly, granting her and Will meager scraps in return. Though she labored from morning until deep into the night, Will's mother received no kindness from her employers. Her arms grew raw from ceaseless work, and soon an infection set in, draining her strength. Despite her weariness, she held on until Will turned 12 years old. One day, she fell gravely ill and knew her end was near. Calling Will to her bedside, she whispered that he must flee that very night. Otherwise, the farmer and his wife would make him a servant as well, driving him to ruin. "But can I go?" Will asked desperately. "Surely the king's men will find me and accuse me of running away." Gathering her final breath, his mother spoke of a hidden forest, warning him to journey so deep into its depths that the starlight no longer shone, and the moon vanished behind the treetops. When all light was gone, he should call out, "Dark is the night this hour. The dawn draws near and swift. Reveal yourself from shadow's power, so I may find the hidden gift." She said no more, and Will felt her spirit leave. Unfortunately, the farmer had been eavesdropping and heard every word. Once Will's mother passed, he dragged her body into the yard, then tied Will to a post beside her. The cruel man wanted Will to suffer for daring to think of escape. But the boy was clever. He had secretly stolen a small knife while the farmer was binding his feet. The moment the farmer left to search the forest, hoping to uncover whatever plan Will's mother had devised, Will used the knife to free himself. He ran into the woods as fast as he could, guided only by the pale glow of a full moon. Deeper and deeper among the trees he went, until the branches formed a canopy so dense that barely a beam of light broke through. At last, he reached a place where even the moon's faint glimmer vanished. There, recalling his mother's final counsel, Will recited the verse. No sooner had his voice died away than 3 glimmers of light appeared, flickering in the darkness. Will stumbled over roots and branches as he made his way toward them, scratching himself along the way, though he pressed onward, determined. Finally, he came to a clearing. Even here, the towering trees were so thick that no open sky could be seen, yet 3 small huts stood before him, each with a lantern glowing by its door. Will approached the first hut and knocked. "Good evening," he said. "I'm weary and hungry. May I ask for shelter?" A thin, wavering voice answered from within. "The door is unbarred, and you may enter. Yet be warned, I neither eat nor sleep, and there is nothing here for you." Chilled by this eerie response, Will realized this might be no ordinary dwelling but the abode of some otherworldly presence that boded ill. Quickly he replied, "I thank you for your kindness, but I must continue my journey." He went to the second hut and once again pleaded for shelter. Inside, he heard the clamor of a great feast. Yet when Will asked if he could come in, all fell silent. A deep voice responded, "Here you shall find food and drink aplenty, but know this, if you enter, you may never leave again." Will recalled tales of travelers lured into hidden halls, who were then held captive forever. So he answered, "I thank you for your kindness, but I must continue my journey." Despairing, for he was still hungry and chilled by the night, Will approached the third hut. He knocked a final time, and a gentle voice answered, "Come in, dear boy, and you shall never hunger, never feel cold or weariness, and your worries shall all fade away." He placed a hand on the latch, about to enter, when realization struck him like lightning. These huts were illusions cast by death. Death does not eat or sleep, no one returns from death's abode, and in death's embrace, all mortal sufferings are eased. With sudden resolve, he cried, "I thank you for your kindness, but I choose to live rather than end my days here." At that very moment, the 3 huts vanished from sight, and in their place stood a small yet splendid castle at the center of the clearing. Light shone from its windows, warming the gloom. Hope stirred in Will's heart. He made his way to the grand entrance door, on which hung a heavy knocker shaped like a luminous face. He lifted it, and a great resounding boom echoed from within. Though wary of more illusions, Will saw no choice but to seek shelter. The door swung open of its own accord. There stood a figure in a black hooded robe, face hidden in shadow. In a deep, mysterious voice he said, "You have seen through my illusions and proven yourself worthy to be my apprentice. But beware, if you stay, you cannot leave until you are 20 years old and have finished your training." Will did not understand exactly what this meant, but he was cold, afraid, and sure he would not survive the night in the forest. So he nodded his assent and stepped inside. The door closed behind him. Timidly, Will asked if anyone else had passed through the clearing, worried still that the farmer might be close behind. The robed figure said that indeed another man had arrived shortly before Will, but that man had followed the first hut's invitation and was already lost, never to return. The castle, he explained, was hidden by powerful spells, so Will need not fear being found. Thus began Will's new life. By day, he performed household chores for the man he came to call the Master of Magic. Every Friday night, a new book would appear on Will's bedside table. Each book taught a different branch of magic, and by the following Friday, he was expected to have learned its contents. The lessons began modestly, healing minor wounds and levitating feathers, but in time grew more arcane, from conjuring illusions to bending the wills of beasts and then of men. Though lonely, it was a tolerable existence, for Will had plenty to eat and drink. The chores were never too arduous, and the studies were fascinating. The master rarely appeared, only once a week to test Will on his latest lessons, before descending again into a secret dungeon, which Will was forbidden to enter. For 8 years, Will obeyed this command. At last, the day arrived when Will turned 20. Strangely, the master did not visit him for the weekly trial. Curious and concerned, Will went to the locked dungeon door, knocking and calling out, yet no response came. He discovered the door was sealed by an enchantment, but his own knowledge had grown deep. With effort, he undid the spell and ventured down a winding staircase that led far below ground. There he found rows of books and instruments of mysterious purpose, along with a massive black tome resting on a desk. Its cover seemed lined with dark fur, and its pages were as black as midnight, with golden lettering upon them. On top of the tome lay a note: "My dear apprentice, I suspected your curiosity would lead you here, for curiosity is the key to knowledge. This book is your final lesson. Within it lies a magic so potent that even the deepest shadows might answer your call. Take it with you and use your gifts, but beware, great power can blind those who wield it. Your father." Startled, Will realized that his teacher of the past 8 years might also have been his father, the man he had been told was dead long ago. Suddenly, he understood how his mother had known to send him into the forest. Having completed his training, Will left the castle for the first time in 8 years. The forest itself parted before him, tree branches bending aside to form a clear path, so complete was his mastery over nature's forces. Eventually, he emerged at a farmstead he recognized well. A new family had taken over. Curious, he asked what had become of the previous owners. The new farmer replied they had both perished. The old master had vanished in the forest, never to be found. And his wife, left alone, had no skills to sustain her, and soon wasted away. Will then asked for directions to the nearest city, intending to seek his fortune. The new farmer offered him an old horse no longer fit for heavy work, so that Will could more easily travel. When Will asked what payment was expected, the kindly man shook his head, saying he needed nothing in return. Grateful, Will noticed a small apple tree nearby and advised the man to harvest its fruit under the light of the next full moon. Following Will's advice, the man discovered that each apple turned to solid gold, making him wealthy indeed. Taking the old horse, Will used his magic to give it renewed vigor, and within 5 days they arrived at a grand city crowned by a mighty king's palace. There Will learned that 3 dragons, one black, one red, and one green, had ravaged the realm and were now advancing upon the city itself. In desperation, the king had promised half his kingdom to anyone who could defeat them and save his people. Will, having studied even the darkest spells of the Black Tome, presented himself before the king and vowed to vanquish the dragons. The king, skeptical of Will's seemingly untested strength, cautioned him that no knight had yet returned from the battlefield. Still, Will insisted. He rode to the front lines, where only a few weary soldiers remained from what had once been a formidable army. There, he called upon the earth to open and swallow the dragons, but the creatures were winged and soared out of reach. Next, Will beseeched the wind to blow them into the chasms below. Yet the dragon's wings proved too strong. At last, with no recourse left, Will turned to the final, most potent spell in the Black Tome. From his hands billowed a swirling darkness that seeped into the dragon's senses, forcing them under his command. With an echoing roar, they obeyed and crept into the depths of the earth, never to return. When Will came back victorious, the city rejoiced. The few who had survived the dragon's onslaught attested to Will's tremendous sorcery. Rather than claim half the kingdom, Will asked for the princess's hand in marriage, and the king happily granted it. Upon the monarch's passing, Will was crowned in his place, a king known in every land for powers as wondrous as his heart was kind. And thus ends the tale of Will, who outwitted deathly illusions in the forest and became a famed and merciful king, ever remembered for his courage, wisdom, and gentle spirit.